Hello, guys, and welcome to our webinar. Today, we are going to be going over an introduction to the contributions module, and that includes kind of putting in the different types of records that are available. This includes things like funds, the contributors or envelope numbers, and then also the offerings themselves. And then we'll also kind of go over just some light reporting on just the batches themselves, and then also those statements as well. So welcome. I hope everybody is doing well. Just to let you know, these webinars are recorded and they will be available in the future. So even if you have to kind of cut out early for any sort of reason, this will be sent out to everybody who had registered for this webinar, and it will also be available on our help center. And also when you go into your Shepherd staff software, if you go up to help and go under training, they should be under videos as well if you have your registered database, as well as an up-to-date support contract. So those are always going to be available to you, even if you have to cut out early. So no worries on that. Just as a bit of an introduction, just in case you guys weren't aware from some of the other webinars, my name is Taylor. I am a software support technician and have been here for, about, I actually need to share my screen, so sorry. I knew I was going to forget something, so, might as well just get that out of the way. But, my name is Taylor, and I'm a software support technician, been here for 5 years, been making mistakes down the road all this time. But thankfully, everybody has been real kind, and I do enjoy talking to different church folk. So, I'm very blessed to be here. And then I have, just kind of as my little support here, I do have my manager, Rod Kiles, here. So, phones and microphones are muted during this webinar, but you are more than welcome to go into the little question section and ask your questions. I will actually be looking over there throughout my presentation, but Rod will definitely be kind of hanging out there and answering questions as needed. And anything that he doesn't get to, will definitely take some time after class to address any sort of questions that you guys might have on the contributions module. So thank you, Rod, for doing that. And thank you guys for your patience with me, even when, I forget to actually show you the slides. So, okay. For an overview, just a minor class agenda for what we're going to cover today, mostly just inputting in those records for today. And that's going to include just kind of giving a brief tour of the contributions module, very similar to the other modules, and then also kind of going over some of their conventions. And then we'll go into adding in funds, contributors, which also includes kind of adding and editing those envelope numbers, whether you guys use those physical envelopes, or if it's just kind of a placeholder just to let just attributing it to the right people. And then just kind of editing those either mid-year or at the end of the year, whichever. And then we'll also be getting into just kind of the manual entry for offering batches. There are other ways to enter in those offering batches, and we will be going over that in our next webinar. But for the general manual entry, what you're probably going to be doing every single week, we're going to be going over how to enter in those offerings from your congregation. Then we're going to show just a few minor reports that include like the batch entry reports that you can print off either before or after posting. And then we're going to go over contribution statements as well. That's a pretty big report for giving that you want to give either throughout the year or at the end of the year. So we're definitely going to make sure that we cover that, in this first webinar for you. So then we'll just kind of wrap it up with just a quiz, and then we'll have plenty of time for a Q&A session afterwards for anybody who has additional questions. So we have quite a bit to go over, so let's just go ahead and get it started. So All right, press the escape key. So here we have our Shepherd Staff 9 right here. I am using the most updated version of Shepherd Staff, which is 9.1 as of today. And you can always check that release number down here. Going to log in as the sys administrator. And dragging it over here. There we go. So, I do have access to everything in this software as the system administrator. If you find that there are things that you cannot access, it's probably related to whatever permissions you have. So you can definitely reach out to any of your administrators at the office if you ever needed to access more areas in the software. So, for today, we're going to be going over the contributions module, which up here in the 5 main modules that we have, that's going to be this little purple one. And this just operates with everything that has to do with offerings and just what your congregation is giving to the church. So it's not really the financial side. It can be moved over to the financial side, but this is primarily just what is being given as a donation, and then also kind of wrapping those up in fund summaries and giver summaries, and then also those contribution tax statements at the end of the year. So first off, just kind of as a general, just sort of overview, first we do have this giving tab that we have here. And the first option that we have is batches, and that's kind of your work in progress area in entering in your offerings. And you can kind of see here that we do have many different filters. For batches, you can choose to show just the unposted batches, meaning the ones that are kind of still work in progress. They haven't actually been posted and attributed to reports or the actual records yet. So they're just kind of being worked on right now. If you ever needed to access posted batches, those that have already been attributed to givers, then you can also access those from here. It is stipulated that it is those posted batches or those batches that have been posted after the major updates in 8.9, I believe, that had to do with a major rewrite of the contribution module. So after you've had that most recent update, especially if you just recently updated, all of those posted batches from now on will be appearing here, but the ones that were in previous versions, those will not be coming over. So from here on, you will be able to access those posted batches as you need, and then print them off if you needed to. Or if you just wanted to see just all the batches or those specifically deposited to finance, because those offering batches can be made into deposits into our financial module, you can see specifically just those that have been marked as a deposit. Then just further down on this giving tab here, we have our funds, which are just any sort of purpose that you want to attribute an offering for. So whenever you have a new purpose, whether it's a memorial fund or just any sort of reason that someone definitely wants those offerings attributed to that particular purpose, you can create those funds. There is no limit, so you can definitely create those funds and then have them be active as long as you need. Then we have our contributors. So in the membership area, we put in person records, and then we have the ability to bring those person records in as contributors by assigning them a number. Even if they're not going to be using that physical number, they do require having some sort of number just to specify that that person is giving. And we'll get into adding in those in just a second. Then we have pledges. Just anytime someone is going to make a promise to give a certain amount to a certain fund within a certain date, you can add in a pledge, and that can be added to their statement. Under offerings, this is kind of the area of just kind of a detailed view where you can see each individual offering if need be, and then you can kind of edit them as needed. For gifts in kind, these are for any sort of non-monetary giving or offering. So this could include things like baked goods, if they're donating vehicles or clothing, just anything that they might want to be added to the contribution statement, but it doesn't actually have a deductible monetary value that they can put in for taxes. Just something that they can just put that in just to denote that they have given that. And then we also have recurrent offerings for any sort of offerings that are given on a consistent basis. You can mark them as being reoccurring so that they appear in their own batch, and so then you don't have to recreate them from scratch. It's just completely up to you guys. The other three sorts of tabs that we have here, the summaries and the analysis and the other reports, these are basically just reporting on a view or in an actual printable report based on the information that you have entered in the Giving tab. So we do go into more detail in our next webinar, but the summaries just kind of give just everything related to each fund or each year. Then the analysis goes into even more information. Other reports, which includes like the contribution statements right here, they have additional reports that you can print or create labels from. And then, it just kind of brings in all of those records that you have put in previously. And then, of course, we do have our tools and settings that is available right here. And we'll also be going over that later. So just going back on the giving area, we'll go ahead and just kind of hide these favorite options here, though you do have this option whenever you're in a specific view or report. You can save those settings so that you can just go back to them really quick. So if you frequently need to look at specific offerings for specific people or for people who have given a certain amount, you can certainly create that view and save it here by clicking on the Save button. And the same thing with reports when we get into reports in our later webinar. But also up here for frequent actions, if you find that in this little drop-down menu, just some frequent actions that you might need, you can always star these as well so that you can just kind of keep them in your favorites and just make it easier to navigate. But we'll go ahead and just hide those for right now just so that we can see further into the view. And here we'll go back to our funds really quick. So everything is just kind of in a hierarchy. In order to enter in the offering, you have to attribute it to a fund and then also attribute it to a specific giver if we know them, possibly to a pledge, and then we'll be able to actually post that batch. So with that kind of hierarchy in mind with those dependencies, I'm going to go over to the funds real quick. And so this is what all of our specific purposes for our offerings are going to reside. So anytime that you have a new purpose that you're going to fundraise for or gather any sort of offerings, you will be able to go over here and add in that new fund. So for the one that I have in mind for right now, maybe we have a new scholarship fund for maybe an attached school. So if we wanted to add a new fund for the scholarship fund, we'll go ahead and click on Add here. And it will automatically be given a fund number, and it can be any sort of numbering system you prefer. It does not have to have this specific numbering system, so you can definitely change it. It just automatically gives you whatever, the highest number that is available. But we'll go ahead and go with Scholarship Fund. And then naturally, since this is a new fund, we're not going to mark it as inactive. We don't have to enable renewable pledges. For those who use pledges, you have this option for specific funds if you wanted to enable them. For additional FASB reporting, you can enable that, but very few churches use this anymore, especially the FASB 116. So if you have any questions on that, just reach out to us and we can help you with those specifics. And then whenever you're adding in a fund, like I had mentioned kind of previously, you can create deposits in our financial module based on offering batches that you create in this module. And in order to do that, you kind of attribute each contribution fund to a financial account. And since these are going to be deposits, first get to decide exactly what asset or bank account that you're going to have that deposit be in. These aren't required, so if you're not creating deposits or not using the financial module, then you can ignore this. But if you did want to create those deposits, you could choose that bank account. I'll go ahead and just go with checking because that's where I'll deposit to. And then you get to choose your offset account for tracking these funds and this income. And so that could be either an income account, or it could be the account specific to Shepherd staff called a dedicated account, where you can kind of track what goes both in and out, as well as move that balance over to the next fiscal year. And in this case, I'll go ahead and add to the scholarship fund for my dedicated account scholarship fund that I already have created in the finance module. So if you find that you're not finding this offset account, you might have to go into the finance module and create that account or rename that account so that you can find it under either the income or the dedicated account list. And once you have that selected, that is all that you need to create those deposits. In the event that your congregation might also be giving things like Vanco sorts of e-giving, you can also choose that any sort of fee that is attributed to this donation, you can choose if it's going to go to a expense or another dedicated account if you needed to, or you could just choose to debit the offset account. And so then the offset account is only getting that net amount for that deposit. So, and also, again, if you have any questions, then you can definitely let us know. If you have multiple funds that you want to add in, you can check this box so that whenever you click on save, you still have this menu available. But I'll go ahead and just save it right now. That's the only fund I need to add. And so now we can see that we have that available. If we ever find that we have a fund that we're no longer going to be using, maybe we no longer need this scholarship fund, we can always edit it and then mark it as inactive so that when we're entering in offerings, it's not going to be an option in that drop-down menu. So then they can just be inactive and, still have all of that historical data, but no new entries will be attributed to it. You also have the option to delete them, but that is not always recommended. If you do have offerings attributed to it, I would recommend keeping that if possible. Then from here, now we can actually move over to our contributors. So the difference between just anybody who's in membership and the contributors is simply that they have an envelope number. It is not restricted to members. It's not restricted to any sort of status in membership, just the fact that they have to have their person record created in membership. So that is the only requirement. So both members and non-members can give and receive statements. And whenever you add in a new contributor, you'll go to the contributors area here, and you'll click on this add button here. And you'll be greeted with the first available envelope number, after the highest one that's available. If you want to, you can manually choose whatever different numbering system you want. If you want just the absolute highest, including those with like maybe 5-digit numbers, you can just keep going higher and higher. I don't have any at the moment, but you can. If you wanted to just have the next available number, then you can also choose that as well. So I have 119 that is available, but the absolute highest at the end, I have 174. But if I wanted to just kind of fill in that space, then I can go ahead and go with 119. We do have two different columns here, both for the current envelope and then the upcoming envelope. So if we were like in a renumbering situation at the end of the year, but we're just adding in this new person, we could choose a different upcoming envelope if we needed to. I'm not going to do that for right now, but you do have that option. Then we can choose exactly what contributor is going to have this envelope number. Choosing from the drop-down list, anyone that you see here is people who have a person record in membership and do not currently have a envelope number. So if you're looking in the contributors area and you're not finding who you're expecting, then most likely they either already have an envelope number and you can look through your contributors and kind of see who they've been assigned to, or they might not have been created in membership. So it's just completely up to, just those two factors on whether or not they appear in this list. Otherwise, children, people in different households, everybody is going to be available right here. So you can assign that envelope number. In this example, I'll go ahead and go down to Katrina Freeman. She recently got married, and so now she wants to give with her husband. So we will select her, and then whenever we have selected the first contributor, then we have the option to include a joint contributor as well. It does not have to be the spouse, but it does have to be someone who shares their household. So sometimes people do want to have their joint contributor be a son or daughter. I don't really recommend that since it is a tax document and typically only married couples submit their tax statements together, but it is just available. So if they do share a household, you can add that person as a joint contributor. And so then both the wife and the husband are going to be added to this contribution statement with both of their names being available. You also have the ability to add or choose how they would prefer their statement. If they prefer it to be, printed out and mailed, then you could choose to send by mail, or you can mark them as being sent by email. It just depends on whatever their preference is. If you are in doubt, then I'd say go ahead and just send by mail so that whenever you print out contribution statements, they're not automatically excluded. But it's just up to whatever their preference is. And then if there was a custom name for statements, if they didn't want Katrina and Jason Freeman for whatever reason, then you could put in like maybe a maiden name or something on there if you needed to. Then we have these two check boxes here, and they do different things. So in previous versions of Shepherd Staff, we used to only just have one who kind of did both of these, but we've kind of split these up into two very specific situations. If you find that a specific person does not want, when you go and renumber or change the congregation numbers, that they just absolutely have to keep this envelope for any sort of reason, maybe if they are giving from Banco and they just definitely want to keep that specific envelope, then you can check this box so that any sort of renumbering using the automatic utility, they will be excluded, and that the upcoming envelope, no matter how many times you run the renumbering utility, it is always going to be that 119. So it is just strictly going to be that number. So that just kind of locks that in for whatever it is that they need. On the other hand, if say Katrina and Jason, they don't really, they don't give online. They just give according to their name. It doesn't really, they don't need any sort of physical envelope. You could also check that they do not use envelopes. And it kind of frees up that 119 number instead and gives them this big 6-digit number so that, they can still be considered a giver, but they're not going to be using any sort of physical envelope, so it doesn't really matter what number it is that they give. And even if, they do decide to give online, after, being given this large number, we also have the ability to attribute Vanco and giving IDs additionally than just their envelope number. So if they just have this one envelope number, but their Vanco ID is different, you can give them that number and it will attach to their record as well. So it's just many different options, just depending on what situation you're having with a particular giver. And then when you're in the middle of adding maybe multiple contributors, you can check this box to keep this menu open. Or whenever you're finished with adding this contributor, we can go ahead and click on this Save button here. And so then when we look for the Freemans here, then we can see what their envelope number is and what their upcoming envelope is. If we ever needed to edit it, we can just select them, click on the edit button, and then edit any of their contribution information. Whether we wanted to update their current envelope, we can update that current envelope whenever we need to. So maybe instead of 119, we definitely want to go with 174. Then we just have that option as needed. And then we can also make sure that they have the 174 for their upcoming envelope as well, just to remain consistent if we wanted to. So we have the ability to update their current and upcoming envelopes whenever we need. It does not have to be at the end of the year to edit anybody's envelope number, whether using the renumbering utility or manually like we're doing right now. It's just you can update this whenever, and then as long as whoever is entering in the offerings, they know to attribute it to the Freemans or to this particular envelope, then all is well. It's not required for them to keep the same envelope throughout the year. In addition to just this contributor information, you can also kind of open up a contributor's record and kind of see what their offerings are, if they've given in gift in kind or have any pledges, just additional information if you ever needed it that you can also then export if needed, if you're just looking to kind of check up on the status of a contributor as well. So just completely up to you. And then we just kind of save that information, and then we can just move on to our next task whenever it is that we need. Then just lightly, most of our churches, at least the ones that I've talked to, a lot of them no longer take pledges, but in the event that you do, you can always add in a new pledge by going to pledge here. And again, they do not have to be, at the beginning or the end of the year. You can add them whenever. And whenever you add them in, if you're adding in just a single pledge, you can click on this add button. If you're going to be adding multiple people to a singular pledge, like if you just had like a big fundraiser or whatever and a whole bunch of people signed up for a pledge, then you can click on this mass add utility. But they basically work pretty much the same way. Whenever you click on add, you're first going to, for the singular pledge, you'll select the giver that has actually pledged for the specific fund and for the specific amount of time. You'll select the fund that they're going to be giving to. We'll go ahead and go with general fund. Then you can choose your beginning and ending date. You can also click on these little arrows here to just kind of fill in typical dates, like usually like a full year if you needed to, but you can also click on these calendar options as well to select specific dates if it's not just within the year. Then you're going to select the amount that they're going to give each frequency. So if we were going for a weekly amount, maybe we wanted to go with 10, since there are 52 weeks in the year. Total, that's going to be 520 for that total pledge. And then depending on the amount and then the frequency that you select, that is going to be changed just depending on how often it is that you're going to pledge that amount. And once you have that pledge the way that you need to, you can click on save. And then whenever you enter in an offering for that specific fund, for that specific giver, during that specific time period, it will be attributed to that pledge. And then you can kind of show that pledge progress on the person's contribution statement if needed. Now that we have kind of those kind of building blocks kind of set up, now we can actually go into the offering batch itself. So going back to the batch area right here, we'll go ahead and clear this filter just to show just the unposted batches. So these are the ones that are still work in progress. If we wanted to create a new batch, we'll click on this add button here on the bottom window. And then we're going to choose the batch date, which we'll go ahead and add in for this past Sunday for the 10th, and continue. And so then you can see that we have this entry row up here where first we're going to choose the contributor. And if we don't know what the contributor is, or if we needed to add one real quick, we can click on this plus button if needed. You can scroll through this drop-down menu and select them from here. You can also start by typing in their name if you wanted to add it in that way. If you wanted to add them in just based on their name, or you can check this box and have them both ordered and then also brought up by just their number as well. And you can also operate this from your keyboard as well by just pressing the tab key and then just moving on to the next field. With funds, it operates the exact same way. You can either uncheck this box and just start typing the fund name, or you can check this box and type in the fund number, just easier ways to do data entry. If you're going to be doing a lot of offerings for this specific fund, you could choose to repeat this fund by clicking on this plus or this block icon here, so that then that fund is going to stay there. So that then when I go ahead and put in the offering amount, if it's a check, I can put in a check number. I can also lock this so that if I don't have any checks, I don't have to deal with that field at all. Same thing with the description. If I don't need a description, I can just lock it so that then I can just tab straight to the add button. And clicking on the add button, you can see here that the general fund was saved. I can always unlock that so that I can always re-choose that fund again. And then from here, I can just keep on choosing my contributor, my different fund, the amount, and then click on the add button. We also have an additional option called the totals method, where if someone is giving to multiple funds for different amounts, you can click on this method of entry and it will let you know what you have remaining. Some people, including myself, get very confused when it won't let me add. So you can always just click to go back to the free input method as well. Yes, I want to continue. And then just keep switching back and forth as you need. It's just completely up to you. But once you have that offering batch completed, if you find that you needed to edit a line item, you can select that line item and click on edit and just add in any sort of information that you have. Maybe instead of 10, it was 25. I can update that so that all those totals are correct. I can also copy a line item if it was the exact same, and then maybe just edit just the person that is giving that. Just many different ways that you can approach just entering it in manually. And then you can also kind of take a look at those totals just to make sure that, if someone counted things in advance to let you know what each fund got, you can just kind of double check to make sure that your offering batch is correct. If you were not comfortable with knowing those contributor names, you can check this box and just hide them and just work completely off their envelope number if you need to. But if you ever find that you just need to just have a refresher, you can always uncheck that box and have that available to you. From here, you can either export all the line items as you see them from within the batch if you needed to, or when you go ahead and save that batch, you can find them here in your unposted batches, where you can either print a batch report with names if you needed to, or you can print a batch report with no names before you actually post it. And then you would just go ahead and click to post whenever everything was looking good. You want to make sure that it's the right date, that you have the right giver, that the total is correct. You can go and look at extra information as you need, but once everything looks good, you can choose to just post the one that you have selected, or if you wanted to post all of the batches, like you imported a whole bunch of batches, you can choose to post them all instead. And it will just kind of double check with you, make sure everything is the way that it needs to be, that you can either print that batch report again directly from here, and then when you continue, then they will no longer show under unposted batches because they've all posted, but you can always go back and find them again and then print that batch report again if you needed to. So you can print them before, during, after. You will always have that batch report available to you. Then if you ever find that when you entered in a batch, if you made any sort of error, whenever you post a batch, whether it's in attendance or in offerings, it does kind of split all of those line items into their own records and attributes them to the giver and to fund summaries. So they are kind of separated from then on. So if you needed to ever update an offering or even just enter in an offering just by yourself, just one that you had forgotten, you can click on the offering option here, and you can either add a new offering if you wanted to just start from scratch without actually creating a batch. You can then also choose various different contributors. You might also want to either choose to give an anonymous or loose offerings gift, or you can give it from another giver. So this is another new concept that we've added as well. In the event that someone has given something, maybe it's just a one-time thing, so you don't want to go to membership and create a record and then come back here, assign them a number, and then generate their contribution statement. You might want to go into here and just create an other giver, so that whenever we choose that next field, we're able to enter in that other giver information. So if I wanted to put in for Leroy Brown, and he's on Jefferson Street, if I can actually put that in correctly, in St. Louis, Missouri, zip code, and I don't need the country or anything, but once I have that giver information and his address, I can just put that one offering in, especially for like the Easter or Christmas giving. Maybe just a person just gives one big donation. You can choose that fund, whatever it is that they want to give to. Naturally, since they're another giver, they're not going to have a pledge, but you can attribute it to a pledge if it was for another contributor. Then we'll go ahead and put in that amount and then enter in that date. Maybe they just sent it in as a check, so we received it on Thursday, so that'll be good. If we had a document number, we can add that in and a special description. And this is also how you can enter in non-deductible and IRA contributions as well. So if you find that you had an IRA contribution from someone that was just kind of a one and done, then you can just mark that off. And so then it can still be shown on the statement, but it won't be considered part of the deductible option, or on the contribution statement. It won't be under deductible for the statement. But saving that just for this other giver, saving this one offering, it will not create a deposit for finance. So if you create just individual offerings, you will have to put that in manually in finance. Those deposits would only be generated from those batches. And from that, you have the ability to also kind of edit any sort of existing offerings as well. So if a particular person did give on a particular day, maybe within a batch, and then they come back and say, oh, this $125 one, that was non-deductible, you can always find that particular transaction and edit it, and then just mark it as non-deductible from there, so that then James and Ellen, all of their other information, will still be on their statement, but this particular transaction would not be deductible. So, we just have those additional options to add that in, and also edit existing offerings as well. And this could also be the case if you wanted to change the fund or the amount for a specific batch as well. So we definitely have those options here. And since I am a little early, I also wanted to kind of show you that you also have the ability to create attendance batches when you are posting those offering batches, because usually when you're entering in manual offerings, these are actually from the basket that you collect at church. Naturally, if it is a physical gift, they would have to have attended in order for them to give that specific gift. So you can check this box under Tools and Settings, so that whenever you post a particular batch by itself, which I did kind of deny you guys real quick, but let me fix that real quick. If, say, Sue and Dave Abbott gave this specific amount, and we added this to a batch and decided to just post this one batch to that same date, then we can choose to create that deposit in finance. So it would create both the attendance batch if I so chose. I could mark that to being contemporary worship, so that then when I go into the attendance module, I have a little offering batch for Sue and Dave Abbott for having attended this specific time period and the specific worship service, and then also creating that deposit in finance. So whenever you are going to be posting all of them, you do want to make sure that those deposits are coming over. Otherwise, you might have to create those in finance manually. So just things to look out for, just based on what it is that you want things to be carried over for. So with that kind of explanation in both creating those batches and then also the pledges and the different funds. They are also going to be shown in that contribution statement. So once we have already entered in everything for the year or the quarter or the month, whenever it is that you want to create a statement for, you can go to the other reports area here. And the first report that we have available is the contribution statements, it being the most important one typically. Excuse me. With the contribution statements menu, first we'll choose exactly who it is that we want to print for. So if you wanted to select for all envelopes for like the end of the year, you can choose that. Or if there were just a few people who you needed to print for, you could select just for one contributor. If just one person needed a reprint, you have that option. You can also choose for other givers. So for that other giver offering that we just created, if we needed to just create those offerings for just that one and done sort of giver, then we have that option as well. And then also, if you needed to, you can create a contribution statement for all anonymous or loose offerings as well, just so you had that information available. In addition to selecting all envelopes or any of these subgroups, you can also choose an envelope range as well. So if you have a specific numbering system where all the physical envelopes are maybe 100 to 199, you can choose that range to print. And then maybe people who want emails, maybe that's 200 to 299, then you can use that date range to send emails if you needed to. Just something along those lines if you needed to choose particular envelopes in a range. Also, you can choose the specific date range that you want to. It is automatically put in for the current year for whatever January 1st and then all the way to whatever today is. You can edit these ranges, so you can create like contribution statements or maybe like pledge progress reports if you wanted to send it out to givers if you needed to for maybe a quarter or something. You can definitely choose whatever date range it is that you want, and any offerings that are given during that date range, they will be included in your statements. In some areas, you'll have the ability to include a pledge summary, and so you can also choose what that pledge is going to be called. If you wanted to call it a promise or just any sort of other synonym for pledge, you can choose your own term. And then also if you wanted to show if they had a pledge, you know, if they were behind or if there was any left to give, you can choose to show that in addition to the additional pledge summary. Then you get to choose specific funds that you want to show. So if it was just a pledge progress, you might want to choose just the fund that they had a pledge for. But otherwise, you can choose to either show all of them by selecting none of them or just specific ones. Then we also have an additional giving filter. So if you wanted to just create contribution statements to just those who gave within that specific date range, you don't want to print out empty statements, you can add this giving filter if you so need. If it's more on just giving someone a progress report on what they've given, maybe you want to add in those who have a pledge or those behind on a pledge. It's just completely up to you. Then we have the option to sort on exactly how they're going to be printed. It's just completely up to you. Could be by name, could be by number, or if you were planning on mailing them out, you might want to sort by postal code. That makes them just order that just that much easier when you're kind of divvying them up. Then we also have the ability to add in a message. And so this would also include like the IRS message included on the statement that they hadn't received any goods and services. If you had that already created, then you'd be able to use this drop-down menu to select any messages that have been saved. If you find that you have no message that have been saved, you can add one by clicking on this plus button. And I had right here, I can just add in this little message that I had just ready here. So, just no goods and services were provided. The only benefit that they received was that religious benefit. And then maybe your front office number if you wanted to include that if they had questions. And we could put that in as the IRS message. And then, you can either choose them from here, or you can also add in multiple messages as well. So if we were going with that kind of pledge progress as well, then we could do that. Pledge progress message and have that available as well. Then we'll just have those just in case we ever need them. If we ever needed to edit them, we can select it and click on this pencil icon just to open it back up for editing, and then we just resave it. If you find that you no longer need that message, you can click on the trash can icon and it's removed entirely. So then you only have that IRS message available. And so those are just the different messages that you can add in there. Then we also have the ability to show additional information if we wanted to show annual giving history or any sort of attendance summary, just extra information like the pledge summary, just anything that you might also want to include on that statement report. But otherwise, probably the fund summary, any sort of gifts in kind if they gave it. And then usually itemized giving they prefer, but also by giving by week. So it just depends on your preferences. You can kind of tinker around with it and press the print button just to kind of see what the statement is going to look like. It's always going to show you a print preview before it sends anything to the printer. So you'll definitely know exactly what the statements are going to look like before you actually print them out to paper. With those selections already ready, you can then add in extra options, including if a contributor prefers to get an email for their statement, like when we're adding them in and we mark them as either having a print statement or an emailed statement or a do not send option, depending on what those are. If you have this checked, then they would not be included in your list of statements. So if you ever find that some might be left off, then you might want to make sure that this is unchecked to make sure that everybody is included. And then if you did not want to split out non-deductibles for whatever reason, you could do that. And then there are additional formats like barcodes, Canadian format, whatever it is that you need for your statement. Again, just kind of tinker with it, and if you have questions, reach out to us. But once you have those particulars already set up, you can print to preview. If all looks well, you can go ahead and print and choose your printer. If something is looking a little off, then you can always go back and just kind of edit exactly what format and what information is actually being shown. So you'll always be able to kind of see what their address information is going to show. Your church information is from your program settings, so that is automatically populated. And then also including their envelope number, whatever their current envelope number is, and any sort of federal ID if you needed it as well. And from there, I believe that is most of what I needed to go over. So if it's okay with you, I just have a few questions to make sure that I covered all of those important areas. And then afterwards, we'll just go through all the questions and answers, okay? All right then, so I have a few poll questions available. And the first one is it true that batches that have already been posted previously can be reprinted from the batches view? All right, we got a quick group today. All right, I'm going to go ahead and end that. So that answer is true. So for anything from 8.7 beyond, or from 8.7 back, that wasn't the case, and we got feedback that people would like to be able to print those batches, after the fact. So, after the 8.8 update, they can be reprinted from the batches view. You don't have to go and look for a specific report. It's just all automatically available in the batches view. So it is after the 8.8 update, not the 8.9 that I said before. Next, can funds be attached to accounts in the finance module so that there can be deposits made? All right. Looks like everybody who voted has already voted, so that answer is true. So, once that fund has been created and is connected to that bank account and then that offset account, when you post each batch, you'll have the ability to create those deposits. Now the question is, can only deductible offerings be entered into contributions? All right then. So that is false. Again, we got feedback of people who wanted to input non-deductible offerings and IRA contributions. So even if you put it into an offering batch, you can post it and then always edit it to be non-deductible after the fact, or you can go into offerings and add it in individually. And then we also have the gifts in kind for any sort of non-deductible, non-monetary sort of offering as well in the gifts in kind view. Is it true that envelope numbers can only be updated at the end of the year? The people I gave an envelope number to today in November, are they up a creek? Okay then. None of you were fooled. Sounds good. That answer is in fact false. You can add contributors whenever you need to. You can update their envelope numbers. Just make sure that the people who are adding in your offerings just know if there have been any envelope changes during the year. But even if you're running the renumbering utility, at the year end, you can run that utility mid-year, or even, in this sort of time period right before Advent, if you wanted to just renumber them real quick and just have those upcoming numbers just kind of sitting there before you actually move them over in the next year. So you can definitely get on that and get that finished up, as soon as possible if you need to. So no worries there. They can be updated whenever. And then last but not least, only current members can be assigned an envelope number. Is this true or is this false? All right then. So that is false. So being a contributor, it does not, membership status just does not even, enter into the equation. As long as you have a person record and membership, you can be assigned an envelope number, even if it's not a real physical envelope number. And you can enter in offerings and you can receive a statement at the end of the year as needed. So that is definitely false. So even if you're inactive, not a member, visitor, other giver, you will always be able to enter in those offerings for that. So, all right. Do you have any questions? It looks like there have been quite a few questions, but it looks like Rod's answered most of them, but I will go over them afterwards. But if anybody who doesn't have questions, you guys are free to go. I hope you have a lovely day. Please take note of our phone number and email if you have any questions. We're always happy to help. And we'll just talk to you in the next webinar, hopefully. So thank you so much, guys. I'll end the recording now. So.